the Applied AI podcast, where tech meets ROI.
Welcome to episode 4 of the Applied AI podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Andra. As CEO of Talbot West, a digital transformation consultancy, we spend a lot of time telling clients what not to use ChatGPT for, because not only does the tool and other tools like it have a lot of limitations in its capabilities, there are also a lot of privacy and security concerns around uploading highly sensitive information to commercial large language models. Today's guest shows the flip side, that there are many perfectly safe and highly effective use cases for tools like ChatGPT, tools that are low cost, easy to implement, and easy to get tremendous gains from. Today's guest is an entrepreneur using ChatGPT in precisely these ways, and also leveraging other types of automation technologies to 4 to 6x his efficiency and workflows. Enjoy. I'm here with Rick Meekins, who is a very impressive entrepreneur. He's using AI and other technologies in some really interesting ways. Rick, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about, your business ventures, what you have going on. And after that background, we can jump into some of the meat and potatoes of this conversation.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Yeah, my name is Rick Meekins. By trade, I guess you would call it. I'm an operations and strategy consultant. I generally work with companies to help them streamline their operations and figure out what they're going to look like in the future. The work that I'm doing, a lot of the work I'm doing right now is around innovation and guiding companies and founders through the innovation process. So we're looking at going from the idea stage to developing it into something that can really be game changing for the companies that they serve, and then doing the implementation, working with them to teach them how to actually make this part of their organization. This is the nuts and bolts of what I'm doing. I've got a podcast called the Relentless Pursuit of Winning podcast. We're putting on a couple of retreats in the next year or so. Going to invite execs in to come and go through that process I was telling you about, and they're going to go home with 90-day plan to implement some really cool goals. We call it the Big Scary Vision Retreat.
That's awesome. And there's a lot of overlap between what you're doing and, what I do at Talbot West. Both are related to, empowering executives to be more efficient and effective in their companies. A slightly different angle. So I love that. You and I have talked a little bit about that kind of overlap and synergy between what we're both doing. I think it's awesome. And I love your approach on, relentlessness. I think that's an interesting one because it sort of indicates a certain tenacity that's required to drive things forward and succeed in business. And so I like that very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's the big deal. I want to see people just keep going. You're not always going to win, but we've got to be able to pivot, make adjustments and that sort of thing so that we can keep moving forward. The end zone, it's going to keep moving because things are always going to change, but we keep running forward. I think it's important.
Absolutely. That's awesome. So let's jump right in and talk about how you're using these, technologies, some of which have been around a while. You've told me a little bit, some of which are much newer, but you've put together a lot of interesting workflows and, streamlined processes to make things a lot faster and easier for some of the processes you're doing. So I'd love to hear sort of how you're approaching that and what you're doing there.
For sure. One of the biggest time savers that I'm using right now. So we have the podcast and we're actually recording 2 shows a week. So we're editing 2 shows a week. And before, I think when we first started the show, we were doing 4 shows a month and we were paying an outsourced editor to do the show. And he gave us a crazy discount it was like $500 a month or something like that to do the 2 shows and do some shorts. Now we're using an AI tool. Right. So I can record it and then I can go back and I can edit it. And it does the lion's share of the editing. So it's going back and enhancing the audio. It's taking out the pauses. When we have people doing screen shares, it's actually integrating that in there. It does the captions. So the biggest thing that I have to do, the longest part of what I have to do is actually go through and make sure the captions, everything is spelled correctly. I can actually use the captions for the editing. So if there's a part that I don't want to put in there, I can actually just delete that from the captions. It takes out the video also. One of the cool things that they just introduced into the platform is if I need to add a word, for example, I can actually use an AI tool within the system and type that word in, and it'll actually create this little bit of video that looks like me saying whatever that word is. I think that is the coolest thing in the world. but it's cut the editing time down from 4 or 5 hours per episode. I can get an episode done in about an hour.
That's amazing. What is that tool called?
That's riverside.fm.
Okay. Yeah. And that's your basic podcast recording platform that has all of that additional functionality. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. And I know you have a lot of other kind of automations based around that because you have all of these workflows related to scheduling guests, communicating with them, pushing the podcast out, and all that. So, in addition to the AI capabilities of this Riverside platform, let's talk about what else you're doing around the podcast to make it more efficient.
Sure. So I created a workflow of what I want my guest experience to be like. And then looking through that workflow, I looked for opportunities to automate because we get 3 to 4 inquiries a week, which means that we're doing pre-show interviews, we're doing follow-ups, trying to get their information, et cetera, et cetera. So each guest is going to get, I think, about 7 communications throughout the entire podcast process. And so there was no way we were going to be able to keep up with that many shows with that many individuals. So what I did is I have a flow that starts actually on our website. So it actually takes a form from our website. When someone fills that out, it pushes the information into our CRM system. And the CRM system does a bulk of the automation. And yeah, Zoho CRM. I love that system because it's just so adaptable. It's probably not as smooth as some systems, but I find it very good to use with trying to do some of the workflows and automations that we do. I've actually got a whole system in there, or a whole function in there just related to the podcast. So what happens is it creates a contact like a normal CRM does, but it also creates what we call like the RPOW show. And so that has all of the data that comes in from the form. And then from there, I'm able to go through and start automating the steps. So I'm going to change the stage. When I change the stage, it's going to send out another email. It's going to say, okay, let's schedule your pre-show interview. Do the pre-show interview. I have to just build the show from there, decide what we're going to talk about. And then I'm going to change the stage again. It's going to push out another email that says, hey, you know what? I need your bio and stuff. That's going to go to a different form, and that form is going to allow our users to upload the information directly into another form system, which pushes the information into the CRM in the right format. So I'm getting images, I'm getting bio, I'm getting any links, et cetera, et cetera. Again, streamlining it for me. I get a notification when their information is uploaded, and I get a task that's created. I use Microsoft To Do. So I get a task that's created. Once I see that, I'll go back into the CRM, make sure all the images look good and that sort of thing. And then I'll change the stage again. And once I've checked to make sure that everything is the way it needs to be, it'll automatically change the stage and it'll push out the next email, which would be the scheduling. So we have a scheduler. It's also built into Zoho. And that scheduler basically handles the rest of the process. So once someone goes in and schedules, it'll update their status. It'll send them an email, let them know that they're good to go. And then I think 5 days before the show is going to actually go live, another email will go out automatically. The day the show goes live, another email will go out. After the show is published, we have another email going out saying, hey, your show's been published. And then a few days later, there's a couple other emails that go out. But yeah, that's our process. And it's saved us so much time. And we use the same process when we're doing other events. If you were to go to our site and say, hey, I want to sign up for the retreat, there's going to be a form. You're going to fill out the form. It's going to push the information to our CRM. I get a notification. And we can just continue we really value those automations so that we just, A, the process, we don't miss any steps. B, the process is the same for each person. If I want to do a bunch of follow-up emails, I don't have to go and say, hey, did I send this person an email, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really critical for our business. It allows us to stay lean.
Yeah. No, that's incredible. It's amazing how many people don't even know how to take advantage of, tools like this and processes and workflows like this. So that's great. And a couple of thoughts that come up for me, I work with middle market clients mostly, and even in, fairly large companies, it's surprising how many of them haven't embraced some of these types of automations and workflows and AI capabilities. Riverside is a great tool, and there are a lot of specific tools out there for a lot of different tasks. And
Yeah.
it's really about finding the right one that matches what you need and plugging it in. And then there are a lot of these automation capabilities, like you say, everything from Zapier and other types of middleware to CRMs with really cool automation capabilities, plugging them together. And a lot of that stuff has been around for a really long time.
Yeah.
And, everyone's kind of obsessed these days with AI, but basic automation processes and workflows have been available for a very long time, and many organizations haven't actually even leveraged those. And certainly when you bolt AI capabilities onto those, they become even more powerful. So it's really about lining all of that up and getting these workflows that just save a lot of time. And it's incredible how much time you're saving in all of that.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. When we do social media posts for the show, that's a whole other process. We're actually using we use the transcript from the show to actually generate the social media posts. We'll go and drop them into ChatGPT. I've got a project that's created just for creating them, just for designing them. And then when I put the transcript in, it'll spit out like all the posts that I need with the icons. It has an idea of what our brand messaging is supposed to look like. It's a very well streamlined process that again saves us a ton of time. I used to have a marketing company, and in that marketing company, we used to create all those by hand. And so creating different posts for each platform it was just time consuming. It was absolutely I absolutely hated it. But now I create different posts for each platform, and it doesn't take 15 minutes per platform looking up hashtags, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a really AI has really been instrumental in enabling us to continue to do what we do it in a better, more efficient way. We can get more work done. Now we're posting on, I think, 7 or 8 platforms in the same amount of time, in less time than it was taking us to post on 4 platforms.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I want to dwell on that specific use of ChatGPT that you're talking about, because that is a very prime use case for ChatGPT. For one, you're not uploading any kind of sensitive or proprietary information. This is literally just a transcript of a podcast you're publishing. So that makes it very, very safe. And number two, this is something that a large language model does extremely well, which is ingesting a bunch of text and then outputting other text. And it sounds like you're using a project to prompt it, give it persistent memory of these are the types of outputs I want from you. These are the types of inputs I'm going to give to you. Here's what you need to do, so that it already knows what to do. I usually use custom GPTs within ChatGPT for that purpose, but I think projects and custom GPTs can get you very similar functionality. Sounds like you're using a project.
I am. I wanted to use a project versus a GPT in this particular case because we use the same memory, if you will, for a number of different tasks. So we have our social media posts, we have some general content creation. So when I'm looking at creating a blog post or something like that, I might start there. If I'm doing an executive summary, I create a lot of different business concepts and models and that sort of thing. And I want to have the same thinking, the same memory. If we're going to do something that, like you're saying, if we want to do something with a complete clean memory, not pulling data from every place else, I would certainly create a separate GPT for that.
Yeah, that's great. And so within the persistent context of the project there, you're just giving it sort of formatting instructions for all the different social media posts. Essentially, you're telling it, when I give you a transcript, do a LinkedIn post like this, and here's the formatting, and here are the rules for generating a LinkedIn post. Do, Facebook post like this, or whatever, across all your different platforms. Probably you're giving it some uploads, like some samples, maybe. Is that kind of how you're approaching it?
I did that. Yeah, I did that, and I uploaded. We have a brand messaging guide, so I also uploaded that. So it has the sample posts that we use, and then it also has just our general messaging, our general language, so that it's really consistent with the way that I would write the post. And we still go back, and we still typically have to make some adjustments on it just to make sure it's pulling out what we want, the ideal information we want to put out there. But it's saving so much time doing it that way.
Exactly. And again, just to sort of put a finer point on this, this is such a prime use case for a tool like ChatGPT, and it's amazing how many companies aren't even leveraging it for very low-hanging fruit use cases like this. So this is great. I mean, this is exactly the sort of thing I want our audience to hear from practitioners such as yourself that are actually doing this. So that's great. And are there any other use cases or, things you're doing around AI or automations across your different operations?
One of the cool things that I'll do is I use Fire. I think a lot of people are using it, but I'm using Fireflies.
Yeah.
to as my note taker. And one of the things that I found is I can actually use it to create the tasks. Again, I'm using Microsoft To Do. So after a meeting, it's automatically pushing those tasks in the To Do. It does make mistakes. It's a machine. It's saving me a lot of time. So I don't have to go back through the notes and try to figure out what those tasks are. It's automatically in the system that I'm already using. So I'm just going back through those tasks. I'm incorporating it into the timeline that I've already got set up. So it just saves a lot of time. One of the other things that I'm
Oh,
seeing in
let's
some of our
let's
different platforms, we have a project management platform and we have like comments. So we have a task that's going, we have a task that has multiple people that are involved in it. And if I want to get a quick overview of what's happening on the project, I can just go to there's a section in there and it'll give me an overview of what the comments were, and I can go through and I can just search where are we on this, who said what, et cetera, rather than having to go through the entire list of comments. So again, it's just saving a ton of time in that whole process.
Yeah, that's amazing. Let's go back to the Fireflies one. So again, this is a great use case. These note takers, I personally use Fathom, but I know that they're fairly similar and there are a variety of others. Incredibly valuable tools where, just having those transcripts available. It sounds like, are you connecting somehow Fireflies directly to Microsoft To Do?
Yeah, they haven't. So I'm doing more than that actually. So they have an integration that goes directly to Microsoft To Do. But the other thing that I'm doing is I have an integration with my Zapier, right? And so what happens is after I have a meeting, it'll actually go through, Zapier actually go through, find the meeting on my calendar and include the highlights from the meeting into my calendar. So if I'm going back and I say, hey, I want to check out my meeting with Jacob, what we talk about, I can go to our appointment from that day. I can see the highlights from that. I can click the link and it'll actually take me to the meeting in Firefly. So that again, it's essential. I can go and I can listen to the transcript. I can just check out the overview. I can do a search and see, hey, what did Jacob say about AI or this podcast that we're going to do? And I get that information like so much faster than again trying to scribble notes down and trying to read my own handwriting. A whole other story. AI needs to learn how to read my handwriting, and that'll be the win. We're not nearly there yet.
We'll create a custom model for you.
There you go. I don't think it ever looks the same twice, though. That's the problem. I was doing a whiteboard presentation for someone, and they were taking notes, and it was like they had asked me about something that I had written like 10 minutes before, and they said, "Rick, what does that say?" I'm like, "I have no idea." You should have asked me when I wrote it.
Oh, that's funny. And then, so yeah, with this Fireflies, Microsoft To Do, Zapier, calendar integration workflow, are you bringing ChatGPT into that one at all?
Yeah, not yet. There are some things that I want to do that I just haven't had time to do. And part of the reason for that is I really want to understand the flow. So we're changing the flow and I want to add technology to the flow. I don't want to ever be in a situation where I'm adding it just for the sake of adding it. I want to make sure that it's actually creating value for the organization. It's not messing up something else that we're doing because it's time. We have to make the best use of our time no matter what it is.
Absolutely. But sort of future casting, what are you thinking there? How would you potentially integrate ChatGPT into some of that workflow?
I think about the podcast in particular, I would probably I want to be able to automate more of that process. As an interview happens, we're very quickly automatically able to create the topics and the questions just to streamline that part of it, potentially create some potential titles for the show, send the email out. I think that those things are reasonable requests. One of the big things I really want to do with not necessarily ChatGPT, but AI as a whole, is to get a better handle on my calendar because I just have, with all the tasks that are coming in from Fireflies and coming in from different functions, I want to make sure I'm staying on top of them and some of them become obsolete or whatever. And it seems like there should be a way, there's probably is a way that I can just streamline my calendar so that I'm getting the tasks on the calendar versus just getting a long behind list of tasks. It's just like how long is it going to take to get something done?
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And then, yeah, back to the messages use case you were talking about. Can you just go into a little more detail on that? Like what specific technologies and integrations you're using there?
Which messages in the project management tool or?
It's the one where you said you're monitoring a bunch of like user messages and you're doing some workflows around that.
Yes, that is that's our project management tool. It's built into this. We're using a project called using a tool called Teamwork. It's a solid project management platform. It has your typical Microsoft project type, not interface, but tools built into it. But the big deal is we have other vendors that are communicating through the system. And so what we have to be able to do is if we've got 20 or 30 comments on a particular item, we're working on a newsletter today, for example. And so there's 3 people that are commenting through there. And instead of having to go through each comment to see where we are and getting this newsletter out the door, I can just get a quick summary of that. If I wanted to, I could have that quick summary done for me at the end of the day. Just get a Teams message or get an email message that summarizes, not instead of seeing the whole thing, it just summarizes exactly what I need to see, on a particular task. We have the same thing built into our CRM system. So our CRM system, I can go into any contact record and I can get a quick overview of who they are. So what's their name, what company, how long they've been doing what they do, what's their LinkedIn, blah, blah, blah. So it's really speeding up, making us more efficient in terms of getting the information that we need to get about any body of information.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And then across all of these different use cases you're talking about, all the different uses of AI and automation tools and these various integrations, if you could estimate sort of what is the net time savings, whether that's a percentage, or however you want to estimate that.
Sure, for sure. That's a great question. I think just with the podcast, we literally couldn't do what we do without it. I would say, was it 10 hours? I think it took 10 hours before to do the podcast and the shorts, and that would be for 2 shows. So now we're doing 8 shows, and it takes about the same amount of time to do 8 shows.
Yes, you
It
could
takes it
almost say
takes
that.
it takes about 8 hours actually to do all the shows and the shorts now.
So it's about a like 4x efficiency gain.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. As a matter of fact, we're doing more now because we're doing all the social media posts as well. Yeah, I would go higher than that, 5 or 6x at least.
Yeah, that's great. And you raise an interesting point, which is it's not just that you're saving time, you're literally doing things that you would not be able to do before. And I think that
Absolutely.
is one of the cool promises of these technologies is that they enable capabilities or initiatives that you just literally wouldn't be able to do without them.
Oh, absolutely. 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 Yeah, I absolutely love it. I think about the idea. In a way, you can say I'm a business engineer. And so someone, again, comes to me and says, hey, you know what, I've got an idea. And being able to do the research, being able to think about different concepts, looking at what potential exists in the future, looking at doing competitive analysis and that sort of thing goes from having to go, I don't know, 3, 4 days to do this work and make sure that the information is accurate to sometimes a few hours, just depending on what it is. I was talking to a guy last week that's also in the innovation space, and we were talking about being able to go from concept to MVP sometimes inside of a week. Where before, one of the biggest issue was time to market. It's just like, okay, we're working on this for 3 or 4 months, et cetera, et cetera. There's a woman that I was working with. She actually created the world's first full length AI movie built with AI. And she was talking about that. And I think the movie runs about 50 minutes long. And she was telling me that I think she took 3 months to do this. And she used AI for both video and audio. One of the things she mentioned was that the technology had even changed within 3 months. So stuff that she couldn't do in 3 months, 3 months prior with AI, she was able to do by the time she was ready to launch the thing. But the interesting thing was she said it would have taken 2 to 3 years to complete the project prior to being able to use AI.
Yeah, there's an interesting point to be made there too, because yes, it's remarkable that she was able to get it down from years to months. But I think in a lot of people's head, they almost imagine that AI is going to take the human element completely away and you just push a button and it spits out a movie. But she still spent 3 months on it. So there's still like a lot of human involvement and a lot of her own creativity involved. And that's what I'm seeing across the board for this stuff is none of this is replacing the human element. It's just, making a lot of the tedious processes much more efficient so that humans can be very involved. Is that sort of what you're seeing as well?
Absolutely. And not just that, because we're not focused on some of the details, we can be more precise. So it's you come up with and this was her story. She came up with a story. She came up with a concept. She's building this, and she goes, you know what? I want to add this other part. Instead of having to go back and reshoot, bring the actors in, et cetera, to do it again, she just goes back through the system and she goes deeper and she goes deeper and she goes deeper. So the film was originally supposed to be 5 minutes long. The original concept was just a quick idea. And then she turned this into this full feature film because she was able to make the adjustments as she was going through the process. And I've done the same thing. I was building out some programming. And I was happy with the program. I finished it, and it took, I would say, it probably took 2, 3 days to do it, programming for an event that I'm doing. And then I decided to rebuild it because I actually wanted to incorporate ChatGPT and build some GPTs into the program. And so I was able to go back through, and I didn't have to start from scratch. You know what I'm saying? I was able to incorporate it. I was able to use the GPT to incorporate the additional GPT usage into my program, and it wasn't like I had to rebuild it. I wasn't intimidated by it, and it's a very complex program as it was, and I wasn't intimidated by doing this incorporation, and it was smooth.
Yeah, that's great. As we sort of wrap up here, do you have anything you'd like to leave the audience with? Whether that's any kind of pitch about some of your things you have going on, your retreat, your podcast, anything like that, or any final thoughts at all?
You said earlier, one of the things you said earlier was talking about how AI need. I'm gonna frame it as AI needs human intervention. This is the conversation I hear over and over again. And the people that are using ChatGPT or other AI tools recognize that we're getting better information faster. We're able to produce more work that ends up being better at the end of the day. And this is the important thing. And so what we have to be able to do is the evolution from the horse to the car. We've got to be able to adapt to using and leveraging the technology. It's going to be learning how to create those prompts that are getting the results that we want and being able to do it as quickly. There's that intuition, there's that creativity that these tools aren't going to be able to overcome. At least in the very near future, I would encourage people to take advantage of it, to embrace it, to incorporate it in what you're doing. Because what the other thing that happens is if you're not doing it, your competitor is, you're not going to win. And the other thing I would say is make sure you check out my podcast at rpalpodcast.com.
Yeah, that's great. And everything you just said, I 100% agree with. This is the message we're always telling our clients and audience.
Awesome. Awesome.
All right. Well, thanks so much for your time today, Rick. This was great.
Jacob, thanks so much. I really enjoyed it.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.